She goes, oh, well, if you're not good at marketing and the phone doesn't ring, you're going out of business. I said, if you're not good at sales and conversion, you're going out of business anyway. They never see anything changing on the board. They just go, same as always. They do get excited, by the way, when they start seeing things move. And I look at them and I go, if you don't like the way the service department's running, you tell me and I'll fix it. And that's the birth of the Fox org chart. He said to me one day, you know what the best gift you can give anybody? I said, no, what's the best gift, Pop? He goes,
hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Trade Talk. I'm your host, Justin White, and today we have an incredible guest in the studio. Before we get into the show, a quick ask. Would you mind subscribing to the show before we continue? It's going to make sure that it pops up every time on your Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, and continues to help us build this podcast. Also, if you or someone you know is interested in coming on Trade Talk, drop us a line. Send an email to drew@jwhitegroup.com, and we will reach out to you. We'd love to have you on the podcast. Now, for our guest. Today's guest is Al Levi. Al retired from his family business at the age of 48, an incredible business that him and his family built. It's now on the fourth generation today. Al then went on to write the book 7 Powers and How Contractors Can Systemize Their Business. The question I have for everyone listening is, if you were to take 2 months away from your business, how well would it continue to run? Would it blow up on day 1 or 2? Or would it continue to grow and scale for months and months and months? The truth is, most of us have very owner-dependent businesses. Al's gonna unpack a bunch of ideas, and not just ideas, but principles and techniques he has helped many business owners and operators use to scale their business. People like Ellen Rohr, Tommy Mello, and so many others. Al is an absolute legend in the service industry, and I'm so excited to have him on the show. Without further ado, let's jump in. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Trades Talk. I've got Al Levi on the podcast today. Just an amazing all-around individual, operator, and someone who has really helped the trades systemize our businesses. Less stress and more success is what we're going to be talking about. Al, welcome to the show today.
thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I have, we were just chatting about it. I've been called a legend, which is flattering, but when people call me that, I go, you have to just be around a long time to become a legend. And so, but I've had a very varied career and really exciting in many ways, stressful as possible it could be. And I'm thinking all of you listening and watching are knowing exactly what I'm talking about. And what I usually say is, I have been in your chair and I know how uncomfortable it is, but I also know how to make it so much better. And that's what we're going to touch base on, I hope, today.
We will, because we're in charge of this show today. So it's up to us to deliver some content and value. And Al, let's start right there. I was looking at some of the preparation work that I have in front of me, and your tagline is less stress, more success. I'd love to start there, unpack that a little bit. What does that mean? How'd you come up with it? And why does it matter so much to the people in the trades?
Yeah, because, people will look at me now, or they've met me of late in the last, 15, 20 years. But that's not really, where I was at work. I was 50 pounds heavier. Now, I did live in New York, and obviously we had great food. But to say that I was eating my stress would be the most mild version that I could put it in. So, yeah, I was making a lot of money, but the stress was killing me. And fortunately, I had some great industry friends who kind of took me by the side and said, you're on a path to be a really rich dead owner. Is that what you want? And so,
that's real talk right there.
Yeah, it is. I've been very lucky. I've had so many people in my life tell me stuff that I didn't want to hear, but absolutely needed to hear. And one thing I will give myself credit is I will take advice. I will follow what it is. I will see it. And my father has a great thing about it. My father was my number one mentor. And he said to me one day, you know what the best gift you can give anybody? I said, no, what's the best gift, Pop? He goes, advice. I go, why is that? He goes, because if it fits, they can use it. And if it doesn't fit just right, they can tailor it. And if it doesn't fit at all and it doesn't apply, when you walk away, they could just throw it in the trash. No harm, no foul.
So tell me a little bit about your dad and the company that you worked with him at in New York.
Yeah, so we grew up in Queens, for those people who know New York at all, and we served Long Island, and named right. Long Island's 115 miles tip to tip and a lot of traffic. So my dad and my uncle grew the business out of my grandfather's gas station in 1936. And then it was interrupted because they both went into the service in World War II, as well as my mother's and my aunt and all the other people who went off to fight the war. When they came back, it got very serious. Originally, our business was in fuel oil heating. And for those who don't live in the Northeast and don't understand, think of propane. So it's like propane heating. And we deliver the product and we serviced it. That was kind of the mainstay of it. And my dad, my uncle did a really great job of growing the company. And what happened was we were in an area that was going under urban renewal. So 70s and 80s New York was really a pretty tragic time, to say the least, going bust and everything else of that nature. And so there was a lot of flight and their customers left. And to their credit, my dad and my uncle acquired companies to where they were moving to. Because if not, by the time myself and my two older brothers showed up, there would have been no business. What they happily found out is that when you acquire companies the right way, it not only grows your company, but it expands your company, sets up a nice base. But when I arrived, by adding more companies to a company that wasn't very systematic, the way I describe it, it's like gasoline on a fire that's already burning. And so my job, as it was when I arrived, was really to put some foundation or systems or railroad tracks, whatever you want to use as an analogy, to finally gain control here so that we could go next level to where we did, which is we had one main hub and 3 spoke or satellite shops. And that was all on Long Island. So it wasn't even like multi-state or anything else of that nature. And the reason is because ours wasn't distance. So like if you ask any New Yorker or even frankly anyone from California in like LA, how far is it? They go, it's not how far, it's what time of day. So, yeah, that's kind of what we really do. But there's a way to do it right, and of course, a way to do it wrong. And we spent a lot of time. Now, we didn't have any real systems. We didn't have org chart. We didn't have any of this. I was lucky to the forerunner of Nexstar, which was called C2000 back in the 90s. And I joined that organization, which was really cutting edge. And for guys who don't understand this, please take this with a grain of salt. I already admitted it's 30 years old. But my industry friend said to me that I need to get out of the little swimming pool that I was in and go into a much bigger pool if I was really going to go next stage. And so that was joining that organization in its infancy. And the dues were $4,000 a year. That didn't cover any travel and the rest of it.
Wow,
For perspective, our highest fee for joining an organization to that point was $150 for a year. So I walked in, told my dad and my 2 brothers, I go, Ellen Rohr, Dan Holohan said, this is an organization I have to join to, it'll be the betterment for all of us. And they said, sure. How much does it cost? And I go, $4,000. They started going, what? How could that? And then I just walked we were in a very tiny office because my dad believed our office should be the smallest in the building because we're not supposed to sit there. We're supposed to go do something. So I'm walking towards the door and I go, if you guys can't see the future and you don't want to spend the money, I'll just take the money myself out of my own savings. And then they all go, okay, go ahead, join the organization. So that's where I got to meet so many of the great industry giants, Frank Blau, and George Brazil, who were really all of what you take for granted today, flat rate pricing. If you could get into the DeLorean and go back 30 years, all of that was earth shaking. And so I was lucky enough to learn at the feet of these guys. And when I say learn at the feet, that means at the bar after the meetings are over.
That's where you pick up the most knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I completely. So you mentioned Ellen Rohr. Like I heard that slip. I really respect Ellen and what she's done for the trades with her financial acumen and how she is trained on that. Do you go back quite a ways with Ellen? You known her for a
Yeah,
long
we go all
time?
the way back to 94 was the first time we met. She tells the story all the time that we were going to meet up. And she goes, oh, well, just meet me around here. And I showed up with like, well, if you listen to her, she tends to exaggerate. She said I had 150 questions. I actually had 25 questions that I wanted to get answered, and I had them all written out. So that's the story that she says about how the two of us are basically a big X, but there's a lot of stuff in the middle. And we so appreciate each other and really are best friends. And we worked together for a very long time. What I told her one day, I said, I'm really happy to date. I just don't want to get married. She goes, ditto. And so we worked individually. She did the, Ben Franklin, the Mother franchise off for a while. We worked together to create Zoom Drain franchise.
Oh, wow.
I went nationwide with our great customer, Jim Cornetti, who was also the founding member of that. So we've done so much really good work. And I've dragged her back in when she really wanted out, to borrow a line from Godfather. I had worked with who now is very famous, Tommy Mello, home service millionaire, A1 Garage. I did of the 7 powers, there were 2 powers I relied on for that's my wife's name, for Ellen to handle. And that's really financial power, doing the budgets, knowing the numbers, all of that stuff, how to keep score. And then that led to where we had a thing together called sales coaching power, which is how do you keep score? How do you reward the right stuff? And the program was named Reward the Right Stuff. And she would deliver that, not until she did financial power with you, because the reason is, and what I had known without ever meeting Ellen was people were giving bonuses and gifts and all these other out of their own pocket with their own wallet instead of the money they create. And that is the essential of the Reward the Right Stuff and the thing that Ellen did. I was planning, operations, staffing, sales, and marketing was really the 5 things that I focused most on.
It's such an amazing point you bring up too. I think out of the good of our heart, we want to give our employees who work so hard bonuses and gifts and everything. But if we don't tie it to where we're making profitability and where we're making money, we're going to be the most well-liked boss that never actually existed. We're going to run ourselves out of business.
Yeah,
so,
and that's really part of the come to realize is that if you're not paying attention, you can easily drive off the edge of the cliff.
It's right there at all times. So I want to go back, Al. You mentioned you had 25 questions for Ellen. She says 150. I'm going to ask her about that story next time I see her. I'll see her here in a few months.
Yeah, ask her. Yes.
Tell me.
Most of it's true. Just gets it. Yeah. Actually, we were both trained with our good friend Dan Hollahead, who was a great industry writer and speaker and the rest of it. And so he's telling stories, and I know I was there. and I said to him, I said, Dan, that's kind of like what it is. He goes, Al, never get in the way of a good story.
That's good advice. A good storyteller is going to, make the good parts sound even better.
That's his skill, and so is Ellen's skill. Yep.
I love that. I admire that. So tell me a little bit about where that curiosity came from this idea of joining a group and asking questions. A lot of us just show up to learn, but we don't really have questions to ask. Where did this curiosity start for you? Was it at childhood? Where did that
I really believe it was bred into me. I think my father, when he got home from the war, as is my mom, they got very busy at knocking out kids. And so he was growing his own farm team. There were 6 of us at the end of it. And unfortunately, my mother passed early. But the reality is that, each of us kind of had a role. So my brother Marty, being the oldest, he was the financial guy, ran the office, did that. Richie had no interest. He was the guy out in the field, the tools, the rest of the stuff, and overseeing everything of that nature. And I was kind of the bridge between the two. And I was always very curious as going through school, in museums and things like that. I always had a basic curiosity. And really what I love the most is troubleshooting. And Dan nicknamed me in one of his books, the Ace Troubleshooter. And so the name stuck. And if you're old enough, It's actually in a book that he wrote about the ace troubleshooter, which is very funny because it's like a different life, if you will, where I could actually go out in the field and solve stuff that, our team was not small. We were 70 people when I was there, and there were 25 techs. At the end, when I finally reached a certain level of skill, they would all be coming to me, and I was like 25 years old. I'm thinking to myself, are they talking to me? Is there somebody behind me? And then I realized I'm the backstop. So I would fall asleep with books on my chest, and the instruction manuals that most of us throw away. I was reading them at night and really trying to observe. And I was very, very lucky. I had some of the greatest mentors. My dad was really well connected and well liked in the industry, and we were indentured servants to whoever the mentors were. And one of them was this fellow, John Cafferty, who was known as the industry great for like big commercial steam. And so I worked with him. My brother worked with him to kind of explain. He came out of the Navy. He was going to take my brother Richie out to do work on a big job. And he said to Richie, "You're not going to embarrass me. You have to learn how to steer the ship, what the bow, the stern, everything." He goes, "Are we working on the heating system?" He goes, "We see the whole thing." And so I went to work with him, and there's like, using an adjustable wrench was a cardinal sin. You couldn't do that. So he was really particular. And when I was working with him, he would then give me handwritten notes about 5 pages long. And one day he says to me, he goes, "You could be an industry expert." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "All I need is for you to study 10 hours a week." And I go, "Oh, I just got married. At night I go to Votech school, and I'm doing, sales all during the day." And he goes, "Stop. How many hours a week do you think you're watching TV?" I go, "Oh, probably an hour or two a night." And so he works. So like now we're up to 14 hours. And then he goes, "How many hours do you do?" And he goes, "You know what? I don't even need 10 hours. Give me 5 hours every week where you will do the reading and the study that all these other guys won't do." And I guarantee you, he was spot on, because indeed I became one of the top steam guys in the country for heating. And it was because of that. And we all think it's like you got to have these natural skills. You got to have a want. And a want is one thing, but if it's a need that you got to fill and you're willing to subjugate your ego to the others and go seek them out, that really makes a world of difference. And now we're talking about heating, but this applies to your business. Whether you already know that you're weak at planning, operations, staffing, sales, marketing, reward programs, financial, you've got to go find the people that do it. Now, my book lays it out, and I do have systems for all of these things, but it's all good, except if you don't implement. That's what it comes down to.
I completely agree. So tell me more about that implementation. I want to come and we're going to unpack the 7 powers in the book. Before that, I just want to ask, you mentioned hunger and this desire to want and to do things and execution, implementation. How important is it to have those characteristics before you even dive in to a book or a new trade?
Yeah, I think I'm empathetic to the new generation, because I thought I was overloaded with information. We had seminars, not nearly as many as there are today. We had webinars, and we had, trade magazines and things of that nature where you could get a lot of information. And today, there's just so much stuff on social media. The problem with all of it is, how do you know if you're following a genius or an idiot? And that really is a huge problem. Your filter is really important. And if you don't have the railroad tracks that I mentioned, which in my case is 7 powers, all this information you're gathering from 1,000 places, that may be good information, it doesn't fit. And so the analogy I talk about, if I gave you a magic wand and you wanted to build your dream car, Justin, would you start with a Ford chassis, Toyota engine, Hyundai seats? It's insane. But that's exactly what we do when we gather all this information from our last conversation or the last podcast we heard or the last seminar we heard. So planning is where I always started everyone out, which is you have to have a plan. And the planning power is really where everything either gets going or falls off the tracks.
So tell me more about that. What is the planning power?
So what I used to do is come in for 2 days, do an assessment. I'd have them send me resources, and then I would just go to get a look around the shop about what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, and then write up a report and then put a plan together about how to do it. And ultimately what we were trying to do is what I call the funnel, is take 125 to 150 projects and habits. They're not all projects, they're not all habits. Habit would be learning how to do steps of delegation or steps of corrective action. Super important. How to build model trucks, how to build the right, office location for the flow of communication. There's a lot of things in here. So we come up with that, and it sits at the top of the funnel or the hopper. And then it works its way down for 2 reasons. Either fixes the biggest challenge or fixes the greatest chance to grow and be profitable. And by doing that, it falls to the top 30. So 30 would be, Justin, if you and I were working together, next year when I show up, we're going to look at the 30 that you picked and see how well did we knock it out.
Yeah.
That's really how you focus it. But you can't work on 30 things. And I've worked with some huge companies. So they have a lot of people. But if you send them all off to do these 30 things, they'll have 30 things half started, abandoned, done wrong, whatever it is. It's really focused. The hardest thing is to use the same strains again, fix the biggest problem or challenge, greatest chance to grow and be profitable, and get down to your top 5. Top 5.
Okay, so you start with 30, you get down to 5.
Start with the master project list.
Yep.
125 to 150 that you typically do.
Got it.
Usually within like 3 years or so.
Okay. Yeah. Big plans. Okay.
And then you get it down to the top 30, which is what you hope to accomplish in a year.
Yep.
And then you get it down to the top 5. And that is what whether you're a one-man shop or 100 million or 500 million, these are the 5 that you're going to work on every week to make progress, because you, not me, I never picked anybody's top 5. They wanted me to. I never did. I said, no, because I'm going to hold you accountable to the 5 that you chose. If you want my opinion on things, I'm happy to do that. Having said that, you first come up with the 5. And so the 5 is really where we start getting the momentum to learning how to implement. One of the things I stressed was we put a top 5 whiteboard. And even though today's technology, you don't need that, but we put it in some area that every employee is going to pass every day. And all it says is, what are we doing? 5 things. Why are we doing it? And then the last column is status. And the reason I make owners do that is because the staff is the one who holds them accountable. So if they never see anything changing on the board, they just go, same as always. They do get excited, by the way, when they start seeing things move. And they also get even more excited when you get to meetings where they can get some fingerprints on what goes into the list.
Totally agree. Now, we have a ton of technology, dashboards, computers, programs everywhere. Do you still believe it's important and worthwhile to have a physical whiteboard, chalkboard, something on the wall somewhere in the office to write these top 5 down?
Yeah. Usually where I designed offices for everywhere because we were an awful design. I became really good. And so
why
it's usually right where the break area is, where people go to break bread, the office and the rest of it. And people their stuff. So it's there. It's not how you do anything. It's very simple. The less words, the better. All that they're looking on is, okay, so that's what we're working on. Why are we working on it? And then where are we in this? So that we're seeing some progress. So that's really where you make the progress. All the rest of it, I frankly, years ago, I used to do it in Word. Still works, but moved over to Trello, much more better for management systems, Monday, all of that. Use all of that technology, because the board isn't how you get stuff done. It's how you communicate what we're doing. The management software or whatever you're loading it up to is how you start getting things from the So it's lined up from the master project, top 30, top 5, and then you can attach pictures, photos, videos, things of that for progress. Here is the mistake with Trello, Monday, whatever management software you're aware is
Okay.
if you're in a meeting and it's been assigned and you don't make them take out their calendar and put a statement things on the calendar, nothing is going to get done. Because next week, when we come to the meeting, I'm going to go, Justin, I know you're heading up changing uniforms. So we put it on your calendar. Give us an update.
And that's it. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Just
I'm
a quick
big fan
question.
of recurring reminders.
Same. Yeah. I created at the beginning of this year, actually, my ideal calendar of what my perfect week looks like. And then I tried to insert, Tuesday mornings, 3-hour strategic block. And then that's recurring. But every week when I look at my calendar, usually on Fridays for the next week, I would actually put into the description of that block what I'm going to work on. And it's amazing how much more I can get done. But
Absolutely.
I want to go back to this idea of designing offices. I think everyone just like skips by this, but I'm a big believer in this. So tell me a little bit about what makes a good office design.
Yeah, well, I inherited where our office, as I mentioned, all of the flight that went on. Our area was in a bad area. They had knocked out every window. They had broken it in 1,000 times. They were stripping cars in our yard, so we made the gates open so that they could just go in, so we could put them back together. The final move was they drove a truck through the side of the building to break in. And I finally told my brothers, I go, we got to go.
Yeah.
And so I found a location with my brothers. It was really more centrally located to where our customers were. Staff was we actually had to drive people in. It was that bad. And so I knew I had one good chance to get good at it. And what I really did is I designed the office layout based on the box org chart, because we had already developed the box org chart. It's a flat org chart. It's not the fancy C-suite, CIO, CEO, CTO, all of that. It's really, what does it take to run the company, the boxes, and the org chart is important to people for 4 reasons. Where am I today? If I don't like it, at least I know. Where can I go if you're offering a career, not a job, which was what in the late 90s, that was what made us the employer of choice. Because we told people we don't offer jobs anymore, we offer careers. And I'm happy to say the guys that I call kids have all now retired, but they all reached the top levels of the company.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
huge.
So it's a really good thing. The other thing is that one of the things they all hated was as they walked around the office, everybody felt free to yell at them like they were their boss. And so they wanted to know who is their boss. And if it's not in their manuals and their training and their systems, who can they ask a question at and they won't yell? So there's 4 vital reasons to it. But what happened for us was, the story I tell if you have time for it, about where did the box org chart finally come in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the box org chart.
I was going to ask that question. Tell me a little more about this box org chart.
Yeah. So it was 1936, the company was started. And again, we were growing. And by the time we arrived, it was like a 17 million, which back then was big. So Brother Marty, as I mentioned, he wasn't the guy who turned wrenches or anything. He was the first guy to get into the office. So he would get in there around 6 o'clock, get the truck set up, do all the rest of it, but answer the phones. So he gets some customer that's screaming at him, you were here last night, and I have no heat. And I would roll in late, 6:30 a.m., and get into the service department, and I would start managing. And he comes across, to the service manager, and he's screaming and yelling at him. And my first job when I arrived is to walk the service manager off the edge of the building before he jumps. And then I'm sitting at the dispatch desk, and I get a phone call from a supplier. And so you understand, my dad told my brothers and I early on, he goes, our suppliers get paid before you do, because in a pinch, they'll take care of us. So I get a phone call from a supplier while I'm at the dispatch desk. He goes, oh, I know you might have overlooked this bill and, it's understood. When do you think we can get a payment? And so I said, I'll take care of it, hang up the phone. And I go racing across the office to the accounts payable person and start screaming and hollering at it. Now, Marty's job is to talk the accounts payable person off the roof. So we're standing in the hallway between us. And I look at him and I go, if you don't like the way the service department's running, you tell me and I'll fix it. And he goes, well, if you don't like the way the bills are paid, you tell me and I'll fix it. And we just looked at each other and go, wow, this is really good. We should write this down. And that's the birth of the box org chart.
So having clear ownership of important parts of the business in each corner of the box, if you will.
Yeah. It's actually on my website. When you go in to look at the Signature Operating Manual system and products, so you can get a pretty good feel for it. But it's really very flat, but it's a very specific order. And it's really based on when we did the manuals as well. We made sure that all of it fit. Because again, I knew I needed manuals, but I tried to write them and they would always come out like a law book. Article 1-.635. Good luck with the New York City Union getting that in. So Dan Holohan said to me, I know you. You think you're going to sit at the keyboard and create the 10 commandments and everyone's going to obey. That's never going to happen. I said, well, Dan, you're so smart. What should I do? He goes, hire me. I'll run the meetings. We'll write it up. We'll get it in. And we'll get this done. And that's exactly what we did. So he had some ground rules that we can't have anything like et cetera, which just is a trap door for anything you want to pile on an employee. And he said, we have to agree on something that's objective. We can always change it, but at least we have something objectivity. So he ran the meetings and he was the first to point out to me that a tech is either made or broken by the person who answered the phone. And having been a tech, it was like, yes. And, I hadn't thought about it. So he says, this has to be reflected. So we created the triangle of communication, which is the CSR answering the phone, then doing the handoff of the baton to the dispatcher, who then hands off the dispatcher to the tech. And the tech has to close that triangle by handing it back to the dispatcher the right way. Now, technology is incredibly helpful these days, but it does not make that automatic.
Yeah, you still need the human in the loop to provide that lubrication, if you will, to make sure
and
things
verification.
are flowing in the right direction. And verification, exactly. Making
Yep.
sure it's correct. Hey, sorry to interrupt this podcast, friends, but I want to let you know that on November 8th, in partnership with NALP, we're hosting an AI experience for landscape executives and leaders at the Elevate Conference. It's the Sunday before the conference starts. It will be an all-day experience with myself, with Sean Locks, and another special guest. If you guys are struggling to implement Claude and Anthropic's products across your workflow and you want to become a more efficient executive, sign up for this opportunity. It's on the NALP's website. I hope to see you there. All right, back to the show. So I'm hearing a lot about clarity for the technician, clarity for the person answering the phone, clarity for the entire team. How important is clarity to building a scalable organization?
Clarity and communication, obviously two sides of the same coin, but what came up to me, I tell the story a few thousand times, and now it's 1,001, but we had already learned how to be able to take guys and train them. So I took a guy who was flipping pizzas, great young guy. We had 5 install teams, and one of the best installers had become this guy, Bobby. And he's there for like 10 years now. And one of my many jobs was install manager. And this is before the electronics. I had paperwork written up, go over with each of them what was going to go on, and try to get to these jobs by 10 o'clock in the morning, so to see where they are and, help and assist before I went on with the rest of my 1,000 other jobs that I had to do. So I open the window, I slide this out to Bobby, and I go, Bobby, there's a heating system with some stuff that needs to get done. It's pretty intensive. Read it over and let me know if there's anything you need some clarity, because I'm not going to be able to get there at 10 today. I'm going to be able to get there around 2 o'clock. So he looks at it and he goes, I got it, Al, not a problem. I show up at 2 o'clock and I'm walking around the basement. I am muttering every 4-letter word that a good New Yorker knows to myself. And I said to Bobby, I said, come with me. And we go out to the truck, and I said to him, Bobby, this is nothing like what I wanted. He goes, yeah, I know, Al. Your brother Richie showed up and said, do it this way. And so in that instant pain, I realized that we had no defined way and no order or chain or anything else of this nature. And so Bobby and I began to speak for the first time. And I go, Bobby, I got to tell you, I have often thought that you guys lay awake at night trying to figure out how to ruin my day. And Bobby starts to laugh. He goes, Al, that's how all of us feel about all of you. How to ruin each other's day. And I said, well, what the lesson of this is, Bobby, is that while you and I are ruining each other's day, we just ruined this customer's day because this isn't what we promised. So we got to get on the same page. Anyways, go fast forward. We're creating these manuals, spent about $150,000 in today's money, had everything set, and now we had to sell it to the union. So we had a delegation, and the guys were aware of what it was. Bobby coined the line that sold it all. He told everybody, do what's in the book, you're off the hook. And that just took off. And so the union rep shows up. He doesn't, I said, this has got to be in the contract about, these objective standards.
Yeah.
And the union guy says, no way. And the 7 guys who are the committee goes, oh yeah, way. That's going to protect us. And it's also setting us up for our career because now they had levels that they knew they need to meet that we would then provide the training for keep on pushing them up the ladder.
Wow. So this is really the foundation of what we look at today in terms of career paths, apprenticeship programs, all of this. You guys were building the clarity, and it goes back to do what's on the book, you're off the hook, because it's no longer subjective of did I do a good job or not. I followed the manual, which means I did my job as a technician. And it's the hardest job out there. Yeah, I really
I have one of the things here, Justin, is be aware. My father was a firm believer that his boys needed to know that don't ask anybody to do anything that you haven't done yourself.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, as a young man, I did not enjoy that theory, but I understood the wisdom. And actually, it became part of my recruiting speech when I would sit with these young guys and go, I'm going to build a career for you. Having said that, I'm never going to ask you to go on a roof in the middle of winter if I won't go. But if I'm going, you better be coming with me. And if that's not for you, do us both a favor, get up and leave right now. And if it is for you, I've got an exciting career because when we're done talking, I'm going to have you talk with somebody who was just like you, who's now risen to the top levels of our company.
That is such an amazing way to inspire young people. And I think today we need more of that. It's something that I've had a passion of doing. Similar to you, I started out in the trenches, literally digging trenches and installing pavers and operating the equipment, all this stuff. And it's really, really hard work. And one of the things I say to new team members coming on is, I know how hard this work is because I used to do it. And I want to help you either get to a point where you're running a crew or get to a point where you're a supervisor or get to a point where you're enjoying your career, whatever that means. Because there are some team members who want to just be the highest performing technician out there, and we want to help them get there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. The only thing I insisted is you can't stay an apprentice for life because you'd be clogging our pipeline. So we were always training five apprentices. What we were looking at, we finally got smart where we stopped hiring industry retreads and trying to get them fixed. It's exhausting. And so
Tell me more about
built
that.
our own pipeline.
Okay. Tell me more about the pipeline. Tell me more about hiring experienced technicians versus hiring apprentices who are hungry. What'd you learn there?
Yeah, well, for years and years, my dad and uncle were really great at pirating. That sounds better than stealing, I guess. The very best
rescuing?
Best techs out there. Yeah, the best techs out there that they had heard about. And when they would get into our shop, we would just, at 2:00 in the morning when Richie and I were still standing, the last guys after finishing some calls in the office, and go, Justin was the top tech. That's who we overpaid all this money for. He's not even mediocre with the rest of these guys. And so Plus, they were telling us what they would do, what they wouldn't do. It's like you don't get, once in a while, you get lucky, what I call you're able to catch lightning in a bottle, where you find a willing tech
Yep.
who's got great skills. But if you try to replicate that, it's awful. And you can pay, overpay, do whatever you want. But when that entitlement kicks in, it's really almost impossible to stop that system. So my brothers and I, to my dad's credit, he allowed us to go this path where we said, no more. We're going to hire willing apprentices with no skills. We all set up the curriculum and the training for them to become willing junior techs, which means if the manuals are this big, they only get a section of it, and we will train them up so they can go out and be expert at it, start building time on their clock. They'll be able to run calls for us, free up our senior techs, and when they're good, we'll bring them back in 6 months to a year later, and we'll teach them what we didn't teach them the first time. And they're on their way. And then as they keep rising up, it starts expanding the team. And then we do the hub and spoke part in the office with the guys is creating field supervisors we stopped appointing. No longer appointing, oh, you know what? Justin's pretty smart tech. Let's make him the field supervisor. You have those leadership skills? Do you know what to do? No, you don't. You're just going to be, have you ever seen Horrible Bosses? It's basically, you're either going to be an SOB or you're going to try to be everybody's best friend, and either one's going to lose. So it's the senior tech to field supervisor, when there's enough senior techs or installers, is qualify, compete, and train. So they continue this movement up. And they automatically, when they graduate and it's competition, now it's a rented box. The box is at the top, because you can't stay there and fail, because automatically you're failing your team. So the obligation of the owner is get them good or get them back to where they came from. And this is explained to those who go up. I said, there's no harm, no foul for going this. This is a chance. And also, if you don't make it the first time, you'll already know the process. So a lot of them came back the second time and just flying colors.
Can you explain that a little bit more of how you help someone go up and then back down, going up into a field supervisor, back down into a senior tech? There's kind of like this belief that once you are elevated to a new position, if you don't succeed, you're done. You're out of the company. You can't, there's no other option. So I think this is such an opportunity for people to trial. What's your answer on that?
I would go with a bigger thing first, which is, I learned along the way. I wish I had learned it earlier. But either get out in front of it and own it, or be prepared to be run over by it. So in this, by qualifying means that they were, for a service tech, there were a certain percentage, either like top half or top third of the sales, operationally, neat, clean, good marks, customer things. Technically, their callback ratio, which just means if I ran 100 calls, how many are coming back that are legit, which is typically, FYI, a rule of thumb, 4% is a starting point for that. So they're already qualifying on objective things. So you, Justin, can't say, oh, you picked Tommy because Tommy's your buddy and you guys bowl and fish together. No, none of that. You have as much shot as anybody else. So fairness is very, very important. Most of us lose track of the fact that we are a family when we're a business. Not the fact that we're related or not has nothing to do with it. We act like a family. So the question is, are we going to be a dysfunctional family? Many people came to us because they grew up in a dysfunctional family and they finally had a family that they could feel good about. And that is really kind of the same thing. So getting into this first thing, I said, okay, congratulations, the guys who are in this room have qualified. And so there's no harm, no foul here. We're going to do the training. You're going to go through the testing, qualify, train, and then we will get qualify, compete, and then train the ones who win. If you win, you're in the box. We're going to train you a quarter at a time for you to own the box. It's very specific what you need to achieve. And it's in my best interest to keep you there and moving up, because I don't want your box. Having said that, if you don't meet that metric and we work together and can't do it, we'll just move you back down to the senior tech where you started. And here's what you need to know. Because you went through this, the next time we run it, you're going to have an edge over everyone else if it's still something you want to do. So that's how I addressed what you were concerned about it, because I was concerned about where I didn't make it, I'm out, or I made it and then they took it away. So I was very clear about it, and it really works extraordinarily well. Same thing for service managers, same things for install managers. It can't be a position for life.
Yeah. Wow. So it's really just about giving them the roadmap in advance that, hey, this may
Yes.
not work out and it's okay. In fact, if it doesn't work out, it just gives you that much better of a shot next time. Labor, as people say in this industry, the trades industry in general, is our biggest challenge. Yes, you pull 100 contractors, 85, 90% of them is going to say labor is their biggest challenge. What's your immediate response to that?
Gee, that's a new problem unless you were around 30, 40, 50 years ago. And it just goes in a cycle. So, yeah, when I would go out and I traveled all over this great country, working everywhere. Yeah. And I would be in some shop in Iowa or, Wisconsin. And they go, Al, all of that sounds good, but I don't think that will get the buy-in here. I go, oh, you mean the people in Iowa are tougher than a New York City union shop? You think we can't get this in here? So, yeah, of course the answer is we can. You absolutely can. There are other obstacles, but they are all solvable. The problem is we know how to market to get customers, or at least we should, but we never understand that recruiting is marketing. You got to put some money into it. You got to be in the right places. And it doesn't matter what you say so much as who looks like me that's testifying that, wow, the only place I should work is your company, like Glassdoor, the things of that nature. So all of the rules of marketing apply. Recruiting is much easier to take willing apprentices with no skills than trying to find a willing apprentice, willing tech who already has a job. And the only reason he wants to move is because he doesn't want on-call anymore. He doesn't want to have to, go to customers. He only wants to, you do plumbing, heating, cooling. You only want to do plumbing, telling you what he will and won't do. It's not scalable. And if it is, it's just you're going to overpay for all of it. And you're going to be like me. I'm going to tell all of you, you're like me if you're going to follow that road instead. You're a hostage. You're a hostage. You're a hostage.
What do you mean by hostage? Tell me more.
Yeah, I walked into the office one day. I had an awful night's sleep. I closed the door and I said to my dad and my two brothers, I woke up last night from a terrible dream and I realized all of them could quit tomorrow. What will we do? I said, does that worry you? And they go, yeah, it does. What are you going to do about it? And so I said, I don't know right this minute, but I'll figure it out. And of course, it was the org chart. It was the manuals. It was building a hands-on training center. It was learning how to become a better trainer and then having a training curriculum that was the bridge between the manuals and the hands-on training center. So they got trained in our house rather than what all of us do when we talk about in the field training, which is training on your job is how we're learning how to do whatever it is, which is an awful way to train.
It's so well said. And on-the-job training is, yes, it happens, right? But it's an excuse I think a lot of us use to not put clear curriculum in place. And this is something that everyone needs to hear. And the best time to start a training plan was 5 years ago. The second,
yes.
You know what I mean? The second best time.
I know that because Ellen told me that one day. She says to me, she goes, Al, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? I go, Ellen, I grew up in New York City. I don't know from trees. Why don't you just tell me? She goes, 10 years ago and today. Because if you don't plant today, 10 years from now, you'll be wishing that you did.
That's it. And that's so let's unpack this just one more step. What is the first step someone can make? They're listening to this, they're growing a business, they're like, okay, I'm going to start my apprenticeship plan and curriculum and start putting this together. Al, what's like the first step they should take today? What can they do today? And feel free to use your resources.
Yeah, the first most important thing is to have a well-defined org chart so they can see that what I was talking about, those four things.
Yeah.
So they know where they start, they know where they can go, and then your job is to break it up in pieces to provide the training. So that's one. And then if you think of the box org chart, we thought of it as a bingo board. And our job was then to cover each box with a manual that covers about 80% of what goes on, not the 20% weird.
Yeah. Okay.
And even though it's digital, you can make it huge. It's not supposed to be get in trouble. Now I'll look for it. I'm supposed to be training on it every week. I'm supposed to have gone through it. I'm supposed to know it so that, yeah, I can refer back to it. And we're already keeping it sharp because of the meetings. So that's really the next thing. And with that, then with the manuals, you'll know how to begin to build the right hands-on training center. And hands-on training centers are not born equal. I built a hands-on training center, multiple ones, and every one of them was bad. But no training center is worse than a bad training center. And so I just keep getting it. The more you make it like what they're going to run into, the better that is. The next thing is you have to improve your own skills at training. I went to Dale Carnegie's training classes. I watched a lot of video of myself, and it was painful, painful. But I didn't even need a coach. I could see what I was doing. And when I say, well, people go, oh, come on, Al, you couldn't have been that bad. I go, my first video of myself, I was writing on the whiteboard for 10 minutes and never looked back. They either could have all gotten up and left the classroom or thrown stuff at me. I said, it was just awful. But as soon as I saw the video, I could know what I needed to do. So coaching is really getting because the better you become at training, people go, well, I don't want to be a trainer. We'll just hire somebody for that. And I get it. It's a nice way to kind of do it. But I had my competitors begging me to let them send people to train. I go, listen, I would take all of my logos off. We could do this in a warehouse. They'll fall in love with me because it's called trainer love. That's who they're going to fall in love with. So if they're not falling in love with you, who are they falling in love with? It's really that important. As you get it going, yes, you can turn it over, because as I was leaving, I gave my brother's dad 3 years notice of leaving. So I trained the guys that I had trained who had gone through the class and became top level guys, because they were going to take over running that class when I left.
Wow. So this is, I feel like this is the biggest message of the podcast today, is just this idea of training, curriculums, building that career path up, giving the vision and org chart. Al, you've got 6 other powers we really didn't dive into today. So can you run through the other? I've got them here, but can we run through the other?
Planning, I think we did a good job. Operations is the org charts.
Okay.
The manuals, playbooks. Now, they're not SOPs. SOPs are checklists. In the absence of nothing, an SOP is fine, or an AI-generated thing is fine as well, but it's not a replacement for the playbook. If you've ever played any sports, you follow what I mean. And then having meetings on it. It's not like, oh, I just learned it, put it in an LMS, learning management system, and they'll do it themselves. No, they won't. And if they did, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. It's for interactive meetings. So in the program, there's a ton of meetings that Ellen and I put together, and they are very impactful. Only certain people attend. That's really what it is. The next part is this staffing I talked about, is better training, becoming a better trainer, training curriculum, building the right hands-on training center, and how to, for service techs, impart sales, operation, technical skills. For installers, communication, operation, technical skills, so they can get out in the field and begin their path forward. From there, it's sales is very important, to have a sales program, sales system. Otherwise, they're out there doing things in all different order. And if you're a tech, if you think of a no heat call, would you start on one call at a thermostat, the next one down by the furnace, the next one out by a register? No, it's stupid. Well, that's how we do sales if we don't have a sales system. So there's a 5-step sales system that goes through that. There is marketing, because sales and marketing are really the corner. And Ellen asked me one time, she goes, what comes first, sales or marketing? And I go, sales. She goes, oh, well, if you're not good at marketing and the phone doesn't ring, you're going out of business. I said, if you're not good at sales and conversion, you're going out of business anyway. But the better you know how to sell to one ideal customer, then you can sell 10, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 of your ideal customers. So sales is the route to becoming stronger at marketing. That's kind of really the 5. Ellen's financial is all about learning how to do budgeting and real world budgeting. It's not tax accounting, it's real world accounting. And the best way she describes it is you drive your financial car by looking out the front windshield rather than waiting for reports from accountants that are, show about delayed stuff and information you can't really decipher, which would be steering your car by looking out the rearview mirror. And then that will lead you to that sales coaching, which is the reward program.
That is huge. I really appreciate the way you're breaking this down. So with all of those operational powers and you exiting the family business, going on the road to teach these the way of doing things, this operating system, what has been some of your biggest aha moments that you wish you knew when you were running your business? Things that you've learned over the last, 10, 15 years that you're like, man.
Oh, it's actually, I left in 2001, September 2001.
Okay, so 25-year anniversary here.
I put out my shingle in January 2002 out here in Arizona. And so I thought I'd do this for 10 years just because I figured I would do that. And here I am. So when I did my first year, I came back, saw my brothers, we were talking, and they were like really anxious to know, so what'd you learn? What'd you learn? And I said to them, I met people that are way smarter than the three of us.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is our superpower is we argue, we fight, but we don't leave until we actually have a plan and execute it. And that is the difference.
People are very afraid to argue and to push back. I think it's a core part of it. Me and my brother and my dad, same way. We would fight to the death almost, and then we'd come away with a plan that we were all aligned on at the end of the day.
Yeah. Actually, in the meeting, remember I told you in the meeting when we were doing the manuals, and we agreed that it had to be objective.
Yeah.
So Richie and I, Dan's running the meeting. We're there. They're talking about something, and Richie says, well, it depends. And then the next thing he goes, well, use your best judgment. And then I just get up and I walk up to him like nose to nose and I go, whose best judgment, Richie? Like what? They're a mind reader that they know your best judgment? And so we're really getting into an argument. And then I glance up at the clock and I see it's like 1 o'clock and I go, hey, Richie, are you hungry? You want to go out to eat? He goes, yeah, let's go out to eat. And Dan is like, what happened here? I go, well, the two of us are passionate. We'll work it out when we get back. But right now we're going out for lunch. I said, so there's this argument, not personal, but at the end of it, we're going to come up with a decision. And really the box org chart is probably the best thing I delivered for my own family as to whose job it really is. Because before that, we were duplicating stuff or leaving errors. Like for instance, truck insurance, super important because we had 70 trucks. My brother Marty, we would all go out and get three insurance quotes. It was Marty's job. So from then on, it wasn't Richie and Al's job. It was Marty's job to go out and get it and present it to us. What a huge difference. And the same thing in families where everybody's competing because they don't know what their lane is. And the org chart really helps.
I really like that takeaway. And everyone listening, I think this is an opportunity to get more clear on everything in your business, specifically the org chart. Al, what a great conversation today. Thanks so much for your time. I've got a bunch of notes over here that I'm going to go back and get to work on my business, especially the apprenticeship program. Every episode, I like to ask our guest what their trade secret is. And we've had a lot of trade secrets on here. We're coming up on a few hundred. Tell me what is your number one trade secret or piece of advice that we can leave our audience with today.
Yeah, I'm going to share what I was told by the great Jack Tester, who was the head of C2000 back then, and then what ultimately became Nexstar. We were in Oklahoma, bouncing along in a school bus at a field trip, and I said to him, I go, you have 140 companies. This is for what they are today. And I said to him, I said, so what makes the winners and losers? And he looks at me and he goes, the owner. And I go, well, that's not really fair. My staff doesn't want to do anything. And he just puts his hand up. He goes, stop. He goes, I have guys in a town of 10,000 that are making money, hand over fist. And I have guys in population centers of 2 million within an hour's drive that are going broke. It's always the owner. And it's the owner's ability to do two things, inspire and implement, not one or the other.
Both. You got to do both.
Both. Inspire and implement.
That's powerful because a lot of owners out there are really good at vision or they're really good at operations. It's hard to be good at both.
Yeah. I don't know. We're running out of time, but
no,
if you
it's
want
okay.
a visual for that is.
Yeah, let's keep going a little bit.
Yeah. Here's something to lock into this, and the way I described it was, so I'm a inspirational, great speaker. We're going to be the best company. Get you all fired up. You're heading out of the shop. Your tire's low on air. You have a crack in the windshield that hasn't been fixed in 6 months, and you don't have enough parts on the truck. How long will you stay inspired? And then there's guys who have everything new, all the best of the systems, all of it, but you don't believe in this person. They have no vision for the company, and worse than that, they're borderline unethical.
Yep.
Is that who you're going to go and run through a wall for? No. So inspire and implement is exactly, and Jack is brilliant. That is exactly it. Inspire and implement.
And I think that holds true today, but it's actually at, I think, a bigger level today because technology is changing so quickly and people are looking at things in a completely different lens with artificial intelligence and robotics and everything else. The fundamentals of business that you explained that you guys ran on in the 90s, it is even more true today, but the implementation of technology such as ServiceTitan and other technologies, they're coming up with AI. Like this is going to be the difference between the success and failure in 5 to 10 years. Those who are able to implement technology while still running the fundamentals at a high level. And the owners who are able to do that, they're going to print money. They're going to print, multi-digit valuations. It's going to be huge.
I absolutely believe in technology, but I believe in technology with a purpose. So you really need to be super clear about what purpose it is. And also, you just can't spread it out like peanut butter and fix everything underneath. See, if the thing is broken underneath, you just it's like building a beautiful home on top of rocky, bad foundation.
And now we can build like a skyscraper of a home in a matter of a few days where it used to take years. So that's where the 7 powers and other, I call it business fundamentals, but that's where the foundation is actually going to become, I think, more valuable in 2026 through 2030.
I absolutely agree.
So Al, what's your plan over the next few years, man? I mean, you said in 2001 you were going to do it for 10 years. You're here on the podcast with more energy than most of our guests. What's the next few years look like?
I am still passionate as it comes, and but I'm heading more towards the exit, not because I don't love the business, but it really is. When I was a young man, sitting with my friend Dan in an audience who was already, Dan had spoken on stage. We were watching a guy around my age today, probably a little bit older, and he was beginning to stumble a little bit on his words and the rest of it. And Dan does one of these and goes, "If I'm on the stage and I'm ever doing that, get up and drag me off." I said, "Well, I don't speak on the stage, but if I get to that age, I hope I walk off the stage before they drag me off." What I share still has great value and worth, but I know there's a lot of great voices out there, and I've put these systems to great use. They're still out there. A ton of money through PE for companies and the rest of it. And now my great customer, Tommy Mello, A1 Garage, Home Service Freedom, he believed in it so much he licensed it. So this is not going in wherever my end journey is. It will not end with me.
Congratulations on that legacy, because Tommy is the voice for home services and the trades. I mean,
and he believes, to this day, he still knows that that's the foundation.
That's incredible. Wow. Well, Al, thank you so much for your time today, for being on the show, for sharing so much. Folks, go check out the website. We've got the link below. Check out the box org chart, all the things, 7 powers, and make sure to read Al's book too. All right, Al. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.